What's up, Phoenix fam? Hello, 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 darlings. You've got Daniela here, as always, and I would love to welcome you to this week's Wisdom Wednesdays. As you can see, I am rocking the cat mask right now. It is super cute. I can't get over it. I'm loving it, living for it. So tonight, speaking of which, I thought this would be fun to play with, speaking of expectations. People expect spiritual guides, we'll say guides, we'll say mentor, we'll say coach, right? People expect spiritual guides to be always serious and be very into the realm. Maybe that's an expectation time to bust. We're talking about expectations and how they can actually destroy our lives. So I'm sure that you have noticed that as you've gone throughout your life, that there are some choice things, experiences maybe, or people that you didn't get what you thought you'd get. Whether that is with yourself, whether that is with another person, whether that is with a company, a business, a job. Could be anything. So often, we have fallen victim to other people's expectations. Think about this. Think about how you expect yourself to be in life. And again, this cat mask is kind of going along with it because it's a prime example. If you'd asked me 10 years ago if I'd be on Facebook Live giving spiritual tips and tricks in a cat mask, using Facebook, using the social media, I probably would have clocked you sideways and called you crazy. I had an expectation of myself that I was a certain type of person. And that certain type of person wouldn't be as playful and joyful about life as I am now. What did that expectation bring me? A lot of anxiety. It ended up bringing me a lot of depression. It ended up bringing me a lot of shattered dreams and a lot of, what do they call that? Disillusionment. There we go. Anybody resonating with any of this? Right? So, hey Tammy, she says, I don't ever think I've caught you live before. Well, I'm so glad that you've caught me live now, especially when I'm looking so cute like a cat. So this is a great one for you to catch too. It's a great one for anyone to catch. So what I discovered, and I'm sharing with you now, is that 90, 95, up to 98% of all the expectations that we have, think about this. Whether you have them, again, about yourself, about your significant other, about how your life should be, about where you should be in life. We'll talk about my catastrophic meltdown at 30. I'm not where I'm supposed to be in life. Catastrophic meltdown. Because of an expectation, because of a series of expectations I had about myself and my life. Particularly in this case, it's like if I don't get married by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be like the lonely cat lady forever. And that was depressing. How many of these expectations do we hold ourselves to? Like, if I don't get that promotion within a year, then I'm worthless. Or if I don't have X amount of followers or subscribers. Or if I don't... God, it could be anything. Anything. Absolutely anything. Yes, Tara says, I love how your cat ears are twitching. I do too. Oh my God. That's why I put it on. I saw it was an option tonight and I was like, yes, it's perfect. Because again, I am kind of shattering an expectation of what most people would consider a spiritual person to be. And I kind of live to shatter that expectation. Now that I realize that there is an expectation there. So it's kind of fun to blow people's minds like that. But what happens in our lives? All of these expectations. Sorry, we'll get back around. All of these expectations. All of these shoulds. You should do this to get this result, to be able to expect to get this result. You shouldn't do that, or you could expect to have this result. You know, all of these things Think about this. This is the thinker for you. None of that stuff came built in. When you were born as a tiny little bitty little baby, none of that programming came built in, kids. None of it. None of it told you that you weren't good enough, that you weren't pretty enough, that you were too fat, that you weren't smart enough. Nobody told you that you weren't good enough if you couldn't play a musical instrument, or that if you weren't good at math, or if that you weren't good at art, or if that you weren't good at sports. You had no idea. You had no expectation of yourself. You were just a child, a kid, and you went out into the world and played. The happiest times of your life. Were they not? Hopefully. Fingers crossed. I know some of us have had some terrible, terrible experiences. But point being, when we think about that period of our lifetime, for most of us, it was the freest we've ever been. Because we had no expectations of ourselves. We were 2. You can't have expectations at 2. Now, granted, there are some things where, of course, you could make the exception to the rule, where at some point it's like, well, you know, if you are in a marriage, then at some point you may be able to expect that person to not cheat on you. Right? But when I'm talking about expectations, I'm talking about these things that we are really actually using to our detriment. I'm talking about like that thing that I shared with you about me having a meltdown at 30 because I wasn't at a certain place in life. So that meant that I wasn't worthy, or that I was unlovable, or that I wasn't good enough. That I wasn't a true divine being. Basically, that I had failed. Basically, the thought that came through was that I have failed at life. How heavy is that? Why are we saddling ourselves with this nonsense? Again, which come to realize over 90% of these expectations that we hold for ourselves and for our reality and for our experience and how those things should go, 90% of that or more belongs to somebody else. It's somebody else's opinion. It's somebody else's should. It's somebody else's expectation. It's not you having gone through an experience and going, you know, I think I don't prefer to have this experience. I think I'm going to go in this direction over here. And I can probably expect to not experience that particular thing again. That's one kind of expectation that's probably healthy. The other kinds that we saddle ourselves with so often, the expectations of, oh, I should be a certain weight. I should be a certain height. My nose should be a certain way. My eyes should be a certain color. My hair should be a certain color. I should wear, the expectations of I should wear makeup or I'm not pretty. All these kinds of things affect us. All of these kinds of things don't come from us. We spend so much of our life trying to live up to some other expectation of either ourselves or something else that we end up inevitably falling short of most of the time, because the expectation is held in perfectionism. Criticism is held in perfectionism. If you're being a perfectionist, you find room to criticize anything. What comes with criticism? Judgment. What comes with judgment? Expectations, obligations, restrictions. Tammy says, if I could change things, I would have waited until after 30 to do any of those things, but everything falls into place as it should be. So often that is true. So often we are holding a certain expectation of ourselves and our life that is ego-based. And I say ego as in a protective personality, which is a new phrase that I've heard for the ego recently, and I'm totally going to adopt it because it is brilliant. A protective personality. Most of these things are coming, the expectations are coming from this protective personality, from the protective personalities of other people. So other people may expect you to get married and have kids by a certain age, or else you're not worth your salt as a woman. And then we take that on and try to live that out as ourselves. But is that really what we want? Is that really what's best for us in the flow of our life experience? Who knows? All we do know, though, is that not being able to match that expectation is drowning us in our own sorrow and depression. The only thing that you can do, and this is going to be one of those really, really wild, semi-esoteric topics that everyone's, always tells you to do this, but the more I've done my own work, the more it kind of actually is this, is to, for a lot of these things, like say your weight, like say when you needed to be married by or have children by or achieve a particular level of job or career success, or a particular dollar figure behind your name in your bank, or any of these things. If we can remove ourselves from the emotional attachment to the outcome, that is where the expectation is killing us. Because we emotionally are attached to that prized outcome. That prized outcome that we have held in our mind so long that if it doesn't come out exactly like that, we get disappointed, disillusioned, depressed, unmotivated, because it didn't turn out how we wanted it to. Because we were expecting something so much with all of our energy. Why didn't we manifest it? Why aren't we good manifestors? Why doesn't it work out that way? Because we were emotionally... Tammy says, I've spent half my life doing things according to other people's plans or expectations. Absolutely! You and about 100% of the rest of the population of the planet. So, don't feel bad. There's still places in my life, too, where I run up into that and I go, ooh, I'm doing this because of someone else's expectation of me. Ooh, that's interesting. Now, most of the time we'll continue to follow through and do whatever that is, just to get it off my plate. But when you can come into perspective and have that realization, you go, oh. And when you can go, oh, you can begin to remove yourself from the emotional attachment to that outcome, to that expectation. So if someone expects you to be a certain way, and you are holding yourself to that expectation, release the emotional attachment to that expectation, to that ultimate outcome, to that highly prized thing. Because more often than not, actually I would say 100% of the time, at least in my experience and the experience of the people I've been able to work with, when you're able to, divorce yourself, and divorce is a strong trigger word, I've felt some of you, divorce yourself from the emotional attachment, guess what you're doing? You're living in the moment. You're not worrying about whether or not it's going to work out. You're not worried about whether or not you gained that extra pound because you didn't go to the gym this week. You're not worried about that bull crap. And when you're not worried, you're not taking up extra energy, vital extra energy that your body would otherwise be using to heal itself, to repair, to revitalize, to energize you. We waste so much of our vital energy on worrying about the future and regretting the past that it's literally keeping our bodies from being able to do its job. One of the biggest clues that worry is killing you, the worry about the future, the worry and the attachment to the expectation and the outcome, is going to be something like acid reflux. Think about that. Down in your core, that is your core rejecting, not being able to process, not being able to digest. Would you want your body to digest worry? Ugh. It doesn't like to digest it either. So what does it do? It tries to push it back out. Same thing with certain things. Another one, really big one for worry is, I believe, kidney stones. Like stress and worry and that kind of psychological stress. Eczema, actually, that's another one. Migraines, that's another one. All stress related. Oh, fibromyalgia, for those of you out there who have fibro. Don't worry, I understand the struggle. It's crazy. My best friend has it. All of these things, however, are linked to stress and linked to anxiety, which in turn is linked to our expectation and our expectation of a particular outcome and our attachment to that expectation. The second I was able to start forgetting about all that crap, whether or not I gained a pound, whether or not I'm coming to you in full makeup and full face instead of just out of the shower like I am. Tammy says stress alone causes so many health issues. You are absolutely right. You know, and last year I did a really great live about the chemical connection between stress and like heart failure and stuff like that. It was a great live. I should probably remount it and do another one. And that's a great point that you brought up too. All of this is stress related. If you can release that outcome, you're living in the now. You are living in your joy. So you go, Daniela, well, what the hell do I focus on then? I spend so much of my time focusing on these other things. What do I do with my mind then? You focus on what you love. You focus on what brings you joy. If you don't know what that is, go try a bunch of stuff. I hate to break it to you, kids. Because I kind of like felt a wince right there. I hate to break it to you kids in the cult of easy. Don't worry, I used to belong to the cult of easy. I got out. Mostly. You never, I don't know. Can we ever leave the cult of easy? It's kind of like the mafia. But the cult of easy says that if life isn't just like automatically manifesting the exact way that you picture it in your head, that something's wrong and that you're doing it wrong. Anti-cult of easy is that you must take action and continue to try new things to be able to narrow down what it is your passion and your joy is. And that can change from moment to moment. And guess what? That's okay too. One of my favorite quotes that's like running around the internet right now is that you are under no obligation to make sense to anybody else. Sleep on that one. You are under no obligation to make sense to anybody else. Because nobody else is coming from your particular perspective or point of view. Nobody. I don't care how similar the story is. No one is coming from your unique perspective and set of memories and backgrounds and experiences as a soul. Nobody. And that's what makes it impossible for anyone to actually criticize you. In reality, they can try. They can try to criticize you. But it's really just a reflection of where they're feeling lacking in their own self, which of course is something that we get taught as kids, but we're like, we don't believe that, la 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 la, why are they such assholes? Turns out, subconsciously, subliminally, super true. So live in your joy. Right now, I challenge you to go find something that makes you happy, that puts a smile on your face. Go find a craft. Go walk around your neighborhood. Go find a really pretty park. Go feed the ducks at the pond, right? Go do something. Don't just sit there in front of the TV. Okay, I get it. We all love our Netflix and we all love our movies and Hulu and yada yada Gaia. Okay, whatever. I get it. Totally. But we've spent so much time wallowing in the loss of our expectations that we lose motivation to go out and enjoy life. And life is about being enjoyed and being experienced. Or else we wouldn't have bothered to incarnate. One of my favorite lines, another one, is that this doctor, who's scientific bioscience medical doctor by the name of Dr. Bruce Lipton. Love his work, by the way. Feel free to check into that. Apparently he was speaking with some of his guides one time and asked them, I mean, if we're like an existential spiritual being, like that's just a light body, and not just a light body, that is all light body and all experiences and all things at all times, why did we even bother incarnating in the physical to begin with? And the guides go, this is great. The guides go, well then how would you know what chocolate tastes like? It's like, oh my God. It's so simple, yet so profound. Again, coming back to your particular individual unique point of perspective. How would you know what chocolate tastes like? How would you know what it feels like to be loved? How would you know what it feels like to cuddle a kitten or a puppy or whatever your favorite animal is? How would you, as the you that is right now, how would you know? You wouldn't. So that's what we're here to do. To experience, to enjoy, to embody enjoyment. Life is supposed to be fun. Spirituality is actually supposed to be fun. Shocking, I know. What does Tammy say? Tammy says there's nothing that says you can only have one hobby or one interest or one path. There are so many options out there. Follow as many as you can. Absolutely. I 100,000,000% agree with that. I cannot tell you how many bags of little projects and things that I have all around here. You just can't see them. I have got literally a project for every corner because there is that part of me that, yeah, sometimes I want to paint. Sometimes I want to do this. Sometimes I want to dance. Sometimes I want to do this. Sometimes I want to do henna. Sometimes I... And guess what? That's okay. It's actually okay that I have multiple interests. It's okay that you have multiple interests. It's okay that you have multiple passions. Do them all. Who cares? Why, enjoy them all. Whenever you feel like it. If you feel like crocheting right now more than going out and playing basketball on the street, then crochet. Who cares? It is about enjoyment. It is about releasing our emotional attachment to those expectations of what we should have been, who we should have been, where we should have been, what we should have been, or done. Or not done, in some cases, right? Not that I would know. We've all got a past, okay? Everybody's got a past. But point being is releasing our emotional attachment to the expectation that was created by somebody else. And to live what we consider to be joyful. What we consider to be fun. What we want to go experience. And then as you go along, you find family. You find your soul family. You find your people that you can go and do these things with too. And you don't have to have one set of friends either. You can have this set of friends you like to go camping with. You have this set of friends that you like to go talk to aliens with. You have this set of right? You have this set of friends you like to bake with. You have this set of friends that's your knitting circle. I mean, you could juggle literally as many friend circles as you want. How much more fun would your life be if you were juggling friend circles instead of TV shows? That was like a perfect ear flick. So take that to heart. Anytime you're running up against an expectation, anytime you're feeling down on yourself, ask yourself, is this really my expectation? Is this really coming from me? Is this something that I actually want to embody, or am I doing this because of somebody else's perception and understanding and sense of obligation? Think about that one, my lovelies. Before I leave you for this evening, I do want to share with you, speaking about finding your family. When I first started on this journey, probably when I was born, but when I first started on this journey consciously, around my mid-20s, I was pretty on the masculine side of things. All about competition, all about survival of the fittest, all about, kind of like, if you're the best, you should get the best, and, blah, 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 blah. Very, very masculine mentality. I did not understand at all the power and the grace and the support of a women's circle. I was not in touch with my feminine side at all. Well, the very few exceptions. But definitely not like I am now. I'd had some weird experiences with women's circles going along too. I've been in some that were pretty unbalanced, that were a little bit more politically driven, we'll say, than I would have preferred. Like politically agenda, kind of, let's make signs and go protest. I'm like, I'm not about that. Yay for go protesting if you want to go protest, squirrel friend, but it's not my thing. All of this stuff made me kind of stray away from it until I quite honestly, quite literally, fell into one by proxy. This was actually more or less a closer rendition to a soul group or a soul family. Because so often, at least the question for me was, am I even going to like these people, much less relate with them? I mean, I go through a whole lot of weird experiences. I don't know if these people are going to get it. I got into this more balanced circle. Holy shimolies, Phoenixes. I very rarely have ever felt so supported in my life. That's called synchronicity. I've never felt so supported in my life. Hey, Michelle. Now that I have experienced this, I want to bring it to you all. Because we've been taught for so long, so long, that the spiritual journey is a lonely path. You gotta walk it alone, because nobody else gets what you're going through. Nobody else's experience is just like yours, so they have no frame of reference. Like, kind of just the stuff I was just talking with you about, right? But the thing is that we're not meant to do it alone. If we were meant to do it alone, I should say, there wouldn't be 7, 8 billion of us on the planet. If we were meant to do this completely in solitude, we would incarnate it in solitude on a planet. By ourselves, because we're infinite beings, we can do that. But we are actually meant to work in communion. And when I finally actually got to experience that communion and that sharing that didn't have an agenda behind it, it was incredible. We are stronger. And this goes for men and women, really. But women in particular, it's kind of like, you don't pour water on the house that's not on fire. Women, ladies, it's time for us to band together and, continue to bring a little bit of that divine feminine energy back into the fray of the cycles here. We are so much stronger as women. And this, again, I didn't understand this, but we are so much stronger when we are seen, when we're heard, when we have a place to be witnessed, to witness other people, to be held accountable to our own dreams, and to do the same for others, basically, to hold other people accountable too. This is the power of a women's circle. To have that support, to have that communion, to get those answers, to get that clarity, to share your experiences so that you can realize that you're not the only one going through this and that there is actually a support system in place. Once we're done with the women's circle, all of those women are then your sisters. If you completely jived with one, or two, or three, or all of them, all of these people, no matter where they are in the world, and this is the beautiful thing about doing it online, no matter where they are in the world, you have a whole new family of people that understand you or are willing to try. Because I don't know about you, but so many of us, not only including myself, but so many of the people I work with, they come from families and backgrounds and friend groups that they could never talk about stuff that we talk about in this group to any of them in a million years. We don't feel supported as we're going through our spiritual growth. We don't understand. We're going through these experiences and we're not getting into clarity because there are about 1 million answers out there on the internet, and which one do you friggin' believe? The internet is such a powerful tool that it is able to connect souls from across the globe, uniting them with a common vision and desire, which is to grow, which is to share, which is to actually be in communion with, instead of in competition with. Because when you can finally actually find your group of women that you can be in communion with instead of competition, the things that you can build together are absolutely astronomical. So in that vein, I am launching in July an online virtual women's circle exclusively for Redesign Your Life Forever. It's going to be launched only here for only you guys. So for those of you who are interested, for those of you who want to check out a little bit more information, please go check out the website, redesignyourlifeforever.com/women's circle, WOMENS, women's circle. Check that out. There's so much more information on there, but I really just speaking about coming together and finding your family and getting that support, because I know that it's really, really difficult as we're going through this, as we're breaking down our own expectations. We go, okay, so how do we find ourselves? Well, if you actually have people that are coming from a more or less balanced place in comparison to what you're used to, you can actually bounce ideas off of them. You can bounce experiences off of them, and they will share with you. They will commune with you. They will witness you. They will support you so that you can find yourself. And that is huge. So for all 5 weeks in July, all Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, for 2 hours a night, I am going to come and bring to you a women's circle. We are going to come together in communion. It's going to have a very private, exclusive Facebook community so that you all can talk and chat with each other throughout the days of the week, that you can share inspiration. You can get your questions asked and answered by each other and me. It is a completely peer-led support community that goes along with the Women's Circle sessions. Every week we come together for a new focus. I'm going to be doing an energy tarot forecast for the week. I'm going to be pulling Akashic Tarot or even maybe the Oracle cards. That would be excellent. We're going to do probably energetic alignments and things like that, working with Reiki, because I'm getting my certification, so I'm trying to use it as much as possible because I love it. And just be able to talk and share about what's going on in your field, what's going on in the universal field, what's going on out there in the world, and how to make the most of all of that. Coming together in communion, sharing, and how to make the most of all of that. So what are some of the things that we might actually be covering? We're going to be covering healing. Awareness is healing. Too often we actually overcomplicate that process, so I'm going to be bringing hopefully a lot of clarity to the healing process, as well as energy work, as well as using different rituals or different modalities of practice like journaling, pendulum, spiritual baths, essential oils, gemstones, working with the elements, seasons, why bringing ritual into your life can be a good thing, why bringing ritual into your life may not be for you. All of these kinds of things will be explored. Lifestyle, again, kind of like what we're talking about tonight, is what are you getting out of life? Are you constantly surrounded by your own expectations, or are you following your joy? How do you follow your joy? It's a huge question. I get it all the time, and we're going to bring it to the Women's Circle. One of my other favorite topics that we're going to be bringing is the quantum is magic. So I had this great quote, heard this great quote recently. Someone asked a channeler who was channeling a being, what's the difference between quantum mechanics and metaphysics? And the entity replied back, the math. I was like, that's the best answer ever. The best answer ever. The difference between quantum theory and quantum mechanics, that everybody's coming out with, quantum science, like the hot button word right now. The difference between quantum and metaphysics or spirituality is just the math. Super cool, and one of my favorite topics to explore, how quantum modern science is now proving ancient indigenous spiritual teachings and wisdom. So cool. One of my favorite things ever. So those are the kinds of examples of things that we will be talking about. Developing all your clairs, clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clair, all of your intuitive gifts. talking about meditation and hypnosis, when hypnosis is helpful, when it's not, when how to safely influence your subconscious. Tools of the trade, again, cards, pendulums, gemstones, color therapy. That's a really big thing right now. Light color therapy, sound therapy, working with your guides and your Invisi team. Got some hanging out kind of right about here. I don't know if you guys can see them, but they're kind of hanging out right here. All of this stuff we're bringing to the table, all of this stuff can be explored. These are just examples of the kinds of topics that we're going to be covering in this Women's Circle over the course of the entire month of July. So, if that is something that is piquing your interest, that sounds like, oh my God, I need a support system for things like this. This is what I created it for, because I realized that very little actually exists to bring people in community, actual interfacing community with each other in a spiritual sense, to give and receive support, to have that. So, created the Women's Circle, Redo YLF exclusive summer session of the Women's Circle, bringing that to you guys, wanting to be in communion with you, wanting to share that with you, wanting to share as much clarity as I can and be witness and help hold you accountable to your dreams, and have you guys help me hold myself accountable to my own dreams too. So if that's something that interests you, please go and check out the website, redesignyourlifeforever.com/women's circle. You can also go to the homepage, and there is a place on the menu for that page as well. So please go and check all that stuff out. If you need any of the links, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any topics that you want me to cover, you can always message me here on Facebook or at info@redesignyourlifeforever.com. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you everybody who joined me live. It was a pleasure to see you all as always. Thank you so much for joining me for Wisdom Wednesdays. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your evening and your week, and I will see you all soon. Mwah.